So hello and welcome to the presentation of AstroCamp 2018. I'm Carlos Martins, I'm the Scientific Director of the camp, and in the next hour or so we'll explain to you what the camp is. We'll hear some opinions and some perspectives of students that participated last year, and we'll also explain you what you have to do if you want to apply this year. So before starting, let me just remind you that if you want to ask any questions about the camp, there's an email account, which is astrocamp@astro.up.pt. You can use that email to ask us questions now. If we have time, we can answer them online during the webcast. If not, we have the email and we can reply to you later. You can also use the chat window on the YouTube feed to ask questions if you want. So, to begin with, I'll explain a little bit what the concept of the camp is. So, this is something we started in 2012. We're already in the 7th edition. And the camp is essentially an academic program in the physics and astronomy fields, organized for students who are in the last 3 years of pre-university education from any European Union country. So in the first 4 years of the camp, it was only for Portuguese students, so only Portuguese students could apply and participate. Starting in 2016, we opened the application to any European Union student. So any student in the European Union can apply and participate. The only small difference between Portuguese or non-Portuguese students has to do with the funding, but I'll explain that in a little bit. So the camp takes place in August. So this year, the dates will be from the 5th to the 19th of August. And the camp takes place this year, as in all previous years, at the Center for Environmental Education of the Cornel Bico Protected Landscape Area. So this is in the town of Porto, a little bit north of Porto. So it's a mountainous region. It's about 600 meters above sea level, and it's a place where you don't have any light pollution. So our goal with the camp is to identify promising young students, so students who have the talent and the motivation and the potential to be future leaders in the area of work that they choose. This might be astrophysics, or it might be something completely different. And give them some more tools, some more encouragement, and some more training for them to pursue along their chosen path. So for this, we chose an isolated place where you are sort of away from the stresses of daily life, and we'll provide you for these 2 weeks high-level intensive training, and we'll try to stimulate your curiosity, your skills of critical thinking, group responsibility, teamwork, and so on. So give you all the tools that will be hopefully helpful in your future. Of course, we want to put these students in contact with one another. So it's always useful for people who have different backgrounds, different life experiences, come from very different places all over Europe right now, but have common goals, common interests, so they share some of their motivations and aspirations, and it's always good for these people to encourage one another. So the AstroCamp also works as a meeting point for that. So how does it work? Well, the camp is selective. This means that if you want to participate, you will need to apply, and you need to go through a selection process. That selection process has 2 phases. I'll describe this a little bit later. First, you submit an application. We look at that application. We make a short list of students, and then we interview those students. And the interview is always done in English. This has always been the case, even in the first 4 years when only Portuguese students could participate. The interviews are done in English because the camp activities are in English, and we want you to get used to English as a scientific language. So if you work in science in the future, or in many other areas, English will be your everyday language. So you need to be fluent in that. Now, when it comes to costs, For Portuguese students, or actually more rigorously, students that are studying in Portuguese schools, the camp is free. So this means, among other things, that the number of students that can participate depends on the funding we have, depends on our budget, because we are committed to make the camp free for those students. For students that are from other countries, we will have support for some of them. I'll explain a little bit better how a little bit later. Other students may need to pay part of the costs, or they can, by themselves, try to get funding from local sources. Maybe their school, maybe their town hall, maybe other foundations in their area. And we can help them to find this support. So what happens in the camp? So the camp lasts 2 weeks. They're very intense weeks, and as I think students from previous years can tell you. But we have a bunch of scientific and non-scientific activities. So starting with the scientific ones, each student will have to take 2 courses, and each course will consist of a series of 10 lectures, each of which will last 1 hour and a half. So in total, one course will last 15 hours. And then at the end of the course, we have a written exam. And the exam typically lasts 2 hours. It can be a little bit shorter depending on the course. So apart from the courses, you have observational or computational projects. These may be done individually or they may be done in small groups. We have stargazing sessions, both with the naked eye and with telescopes. We do other geeky things, like we watch science documentaries, talks by famous physicists. We talk to active researchers in other countries by Skype. And then we have some other activities in parallel. So we do community service activities. They vary a little bit from year to year. I'll give you an example of one of these in a moment. In the evenings, we have some public talks. These are the only part of the camp that is open to the general public. So the talks are prepared and aimed at the students, but other people can come and listen to these talks. They are not necessarily about physics or astronomy or even science. They can be about any topic. And then you have other recreational activities. We go hiking, so we are in the middle of the mountains. Landscape is very beautiful, so it's a nice place for hiking. We go swimming sometimes. There's a river beach relatively nearby, so you can go swim if you're brave, because the water is actually cold. So there's a bunch of games that we learn. There's some traditional AstroCamp games by now. I don't know if we're going to talk about that. And then, so this is what happens at the camp, but we're also keen to keep in touch with you after the camp and to organize and coordinate activities for former camp students. This might be scientific projects or it might be other things. And again, I'll give you an example in a moment. So let me give you one example of something we did in community service, and it's something that I'm very proud of, and I think all camp students should be very proud of. So you might have thought about building a scale model of the solar system, or you might have done it yourself. And if you try and do it, you will realize that it's very easy to build a model if you want it to be accurate in terms of sizes of the objects, if you don't care about the distances, or it's easy to make it accurate in terms of the distances if you don't care about the sizes. If you want it to be accurate in terms of both sizes and distances, then it's a lot harder to do. As far as we know, there's only 2 such scale models that are correct in the Iberian Peninsula, and there are less than 20 throughout Europe. We built one of these. So this is something we did in the first 4 years of the camp. First in a slightly informal and rudimentary way, then we decided it would be better to have it in a more permanent form. So we talked to the Porto municipality, we talked to Ciência Viva, which is the Portuguese national outreach agency, we talked to a few other scientific and non-scientific sponsors, and we decided to create a more permanent graphic image for it, and also associate a hiking trail to it. So this is what's called a solar system trail. So this is part of the municipality's network of hiking trails. So there's one of these is a solar system trail, and you can now go hiking there, and you have a trail that it's about 8.5 kilometers walking, where you start at the sun and you gradually pass through all the other planets which are in their accurate position. So this is something that we did, and it's one of our legacies. It's there, people can go there whenever they want, learn a little bit about astronomy because you have some information about the planets and so on, and also enjoy the nice landscape. So this is one of our community service activities. Now let me talk about actual science that we've done at the camp, or for which the camp was a nice vehicle. So what you see on the slide is the top part of a scientific paper we just published a couple of weeks ago. So it was published in a journal called Physical Review D. There's a link on the slide which you can use to go and read the paper if you want. You have the PDF there. And what's nice about this work is that some of the work was done during AstroCamp 2017 or after it. It was a project that started before the camp. I started it with some students of mine, but then during the computational project in the camp, we did some things that were kind of related to this work, and then we decided at some point to combine the two things, and in the end, a nice paper came out of it. So I think of this as the AstroCamp paper, or at least the first AstroCamp paper, because all the authors of the paper have participated in AstroCamps. So I'm one of the authors. All the other authors have been either students or monitors of previous AstroCamps, and some of them have been both students and monitors of several different editions. So this is we didn't plan it this way. We didn't plan to write a paper just with people that have been to AstroCamp, but it's a nice thing that came out of it. So this is to show that we can actually do real science with the tools and techniques that you learn at the camp. Okay, so that is the basic idea, the basic structure of the camp. So now Beatriz, who is sitting here, and Kia, who is sitting at her home in Munich, will explain what last year's edition was like and their experience of it. So I'll just switch on Beatriz's microphone. So you can start, and I'll do the slides.
Okay. Hello, my name is Beatriz. I'm 17. I went to last year's AstroCamp edition, and I wanted to give you a little inside information about how it's like. It's actually pretty nice 2 weeks, but like the teacher Carlos said, they are pretty intense. So we learn a lot. We do a lot during those weeks. And a little bit more specifically about the scientific parts, like the lectures and stuff. They are pretty long, it's true. We have a lot of lessons, we learn a lot, it's a lot of information to keep all at once, but I don't think it's something that you should worry about like we did. I think a lot of us did. And in the end, it's pretty easy if you just go with an open mind and well rested and ready to learn and with will to get more and more knowledge. I think you should be able to handle it pretty well, isn't it, Kia?
Yeah. So hello, my name is Kia and I'm from Munich in Germany. And I was with Beatriz and I think we were 16 students in total at the AstroCamp last year. And yeah, for me, it also was a really great experience. Also, for me, it was even more exciting somehow because I was in a different country and spoke a different language. I mean, everyone spoke English, so that's another thing I found very interesting. And yeah, I think it's a really, really great opportunity if you're interested in astronomy or physics or science in general. And you get to know a lot of people, you get to know a lot of knowledge, but you just don't have access to in school, or techniques which you just don't learn. So yeah, overall I think it was really great, and I really encourage you to try and apply to it.
I think it is like I'm glad you talked about the meeting new people part, because I think that's one of the greatest things about this kind of camps, because you actually get in touch with a lot of people with different experiences and who come from different places, and that also helps you get more knowledge and helps you grow, because I'm glad we were able to have foreign students like Kia, like a lot of others, because it's really nice to, through them, learn how people face the same things we face here in school, but in other countries with other ways. And I think that also helps a lot. Also, the teamwork we have to develop. That's a really, really, really important part, because when you are in a camp like this, where you need to like have a really good dynamic with 16 people like we had. You need to learn how to deal with all of them, how to work together, and that teamwork gives you a lot of help for future things, for future works, not just in school but later on, because we always have to work in teams and to help each other, and I think that's really, really nice.
Yeah. No, I also think it's great to kind of step out of your comfort zone and just be with new people and with a new experience, and also like science, which you haven't known before. And I think it really makes you grow as a person. So yeah, I really encourage you to do it. I want to talk a little bit about my experience of the application, which was a little different than if you are in Portugal. So the first day I saw the camp, I was super excited. And then I applied to it, and you have to write an essay, and you also have to fill out a questionnaire. And I think you have to meet some other requirements. Carlos will explain that later. And then later, when you pass the first stage of the application, you have a Skype interview. And for me, that was a really nerve-wracking part somehow in the beginning. I was really nervous because I've never done an interview via Skype. But I just would tell you, don't have to be nervous. And also, I think it's really good to learn this, because in the scientific community, you kind of use Skype a lot because the people are all over the world working on things. And also using English as a language really is a good thing to learn, and to just like speak it normally. So yeah, I think that was a really good part as well.
Yeah, it's true. I'm glad you talked about the interview part, because it was also very, very stressing for me. I had never done an interview before, so I was really nervous. And in the end, it turns out I didn't have to be that nervous. So I think it's a really strong point where people get really nervous about and stressed about, and it actually is one of the like just stressless points, because you shouldn't be too worried about it. It's pretty, just be yourself and go with an open mind and be honest with your answers. You don't have to think too much and have to think like, oh my god, I have to have a lot of knowledge to pass this interview. It's not. You should just go and be yourself, be honest, and it all should go well.
Yeah, that really is the way it is. And oh yeah, maybe from the beginning of the camp, I think it's really well organized, everything, and it's very good for international students, but also for Porto students. Like the traveling and everything is really well organized, and the monitors and also Carlos, who's leading the camp, are very responsible, and I think it's a really, really good part. And I flew to Porto, so there I was. We met with a group of international students, and then we traveled to the site of the camp later, and also that was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's also something that I bet foreign students worry a bit about, the traveling part and everything. I don't think they should, because it's really, like you said, all very well organized, and it's all very safe. There's no fear of getting lost or going to the wrong place or anything. It's really all really, really well thought. And I also want to talk a little bit about the environment, because the place where the camp takes part, like the teacher said, you're surrounded by nature. So I think that also helps you disconnect a bit from your stressful life in the city, in school, all that. You kind of forget it and you get in like a small bubble where you're just there to do what you like, learn science, learn astrophysics, learn astronomy, the things you like and all the people around you like too. And it also helps you open up a little bit to the others, to the students you are with. The fact that the monitors aren't their age is not really separate from ours. They are not much older. Also helps because we feel really comfortable around them. They are really nice. They help us a lot. It's a really good dynamic. You have a really good dynamic in the camp. The environment is really good. I think it helps a lot with like you losing a little bit and opening up your mind.
Yeah, no, that's true. But the lecturers also found it great how we work together as a group, and how when you, like, for example, didn't know something or didn't have something at school yet, people were always willing to help you, and you just figured out things together. And I think it really was a good teamwork part. And also to just be with people who share your passion and who are like from completely different backgrounds, from different countries, from different schools, social backgrounds. It's just so cool to have a group of people who is still interested in the same things. And I found that really valuable. Yeah, and the lectures, I found they were done really well, and I learned so much. It was really intense. I learned a lot, but it wasn't that stressful. So you were absolutely able to enjoy it. And yeah, I think that was a really good part as well.
Yeah, it's true. I think you shouldn't, like we did in the beginning, we maybe focused a bit too much on the lectures and the fact that the word exams is written there. Everyone gets really worried about it, like, oh my god, we're gonna have exams, we're gonna be evaluated. And if you focus too much on that, you end up forgetting like the purpose of being there. You should be worried in like learning as much as you can, observing as much as you can, not just from the lectures, but also learning from the others as much as you can. So maybe don't stay too focused and too worried about the exams and stuff, because in the end, it's gonna be pretty. I don't say pretty easy. Of course, you should like work and do some effort because it is a little bit tough. But I don't think you should worry that much because in the end, it all went well. And we, like us helping each other out, it was actually pretty easier because every time you don't get something, some points, someone else can come and help you understand it, and then you can help someone else, and it's just like really good to be helped and help the others. It's a really good dynamic.
Yeah, that's true. Also, I really enjoyed the public talks because we touched on so many topics which were maybe not directly related to astrophysics, but also other things in science. And I think it was really cool to kind of get an insight to that. And we had some evenings where we were then really discussing about topics on the like in the evening at the dinner or things like that. So I think that was really valuable as well. And it's great to have just also other people come in for these talks and just, like, get to experience fields of science which you maybe have like no idea at all about, or you think you don't like, but maybe you like get a different insight to them then from that perspective. So I think, that was another really, really good part of the sciencey part of the camp.
Yeah, I think you're right. Also, one thing that I think it's really, really interesting and it's really like an honor to be able to is Skyping with other with other investigators, and because you actually are able to talk with a lot of people that have a lot of background in the astronomy part and the physics part, and I think that's really important because it helps you know better about what is the work they do, like the investigation, what it all is about. It helps you maybe understand a bit better what you want for the future, maybe which path you would prefer to go to. And there are people with a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, like teacher Carlos here. It's really good to be able to speak personally to those people and get from them their experiences and the knowledge they can pass us. I think that's something that can give you a lot of new like knowledge and experience.
Definitely. Yes, I thought the Skyping was a great part. And just you don't get to speak to these people usually. I think it was like the only opportunity to really get to know a little bit of this community. So yeah, I found that really, really good as well. Oh yeah, the activities. So we did a lot of things apart, or well, connected to science, but not like in the classroom. And for example, we were doing some hiking. We did the solar system trail, and it was really interesting to see this, both by other Astrochem students. And also, what I really especially enjoyed was stargazing at the nights. It was one of my favorite parts of the camp because the sky was so clear. And I learned in these 2 weeks, I learned like so much. And it was every time when I look in the sky now, I remember it. And I think, yeah, that was a really, really enjoyable part. And what are some other activities we did? I think what I really enjoyed as well was cooking. We cooked traditional dishes from every country, and that was such a great thing to experience just different cultures. And I think, yeah, that was really valuable because you don't get to do that usually. And yeah, what other activities did you enjoy a lot?
Well, I think I enjoyed all of them, like the games we played, the traditional games. It really helps with bonding, you know, like all of us. It's really good for you to kind of break the ice with the other students. Also, the building the bird nest was really, really fun.
Yeah.
we ended up with paint all over our clothes, but
Yeah.
it was overall really, really fun. And what you said about stargazing, yeah, it was also probably one of my favorite activities because let me tell you, you will never see a sky like this one. Like, it's just amazing. I had never seen something like this in my life. It was the most beautiful night sky I've ever like seen. And the first night we actually got pretty lucky and unlucky at the same time because the moon was so bright and so beautiful that okay, we couldn't see the stars because of the moon, but it's something like I've never seen before. The moon was just huge and so beautiful. It was like it was really, really a beautiful experience, an amazing experience, and I wish everyone could see a sky like this. Sometimes I'm at home in the middle of the city with all the pollution, the city lights, and you see a few stars in the sky, and I miss this sky so much, so much.
Me too. I think also the combination of, like studying the things in the mornings and then actually like looking in the sky and thinking all of this is going on up there. I think it was just a really great combination. Yeah.
I think you're right.
And also the team building with everything, like as well in the lectures and the games. I think although it's almost a year ago now, we still have some connection to each other, and all of us were a really great team at the end. And I thought it was such a valuable part.
Yeah, good. I think you're right. We were really a great group, and it's really like heartwarming to see that the bonding and the friendships that we created are still going strong, and that we still communicate with each other, and we still make arrangements like, oh my god, you have to come here one day. And we still help each other at school sometimes. With some things we don't understand, when we know that someone is particularly good at that topic, and we're like, oh, hi, so I have to do this, and maybe could you help me? And I think that's really good. You make not just like new friends, but people who can give you more, like who can give you more knowledge, more experience, who can help you reach higher, and I think that's really important.
I think also for the future, maybe for universities, it's a really good network to have. So as well the friends, but also just the people you Skype with, and you know over these connections. I think it can be really valuable later on. I mean, you see it now with this Astrochem paper as well. I think it's a good example.
It is. Well, definitely, like, in the end, what I have to say is you should just go with a very, very, very open mind, open heart, with your will to learn and if you go there like that, like don't stay too much into your own shell. If you come out of your shell a little bit, and if you're willing to learn and to experience new things, and to learn from the others too, to help the others, I think you can take a lot from this experience. It's a really, really good opportunity to grow, not just scientifically, but also as a person. It gives you a lot, like a lot, really. And it's something I would advise everyone to try.
You summarized it beautifully. I think you should just, try to apply. You don't have anything to lose, and it's just a great experience to have. So yeah, it's just so great to step out of your comfort zone and get to know new people and science, and having also the area so beautiful. So I really, just encourage you to try it. You don't have anything to lose, and it was, for me, it was absolutely great.
Okay, well, thank you, Beatriz and Kia. So now I'll explain what you have to do, so how you can apply to this edition. So I already mentioned the dates. So the camp will be from the 5th to the 19th of August. We expect to have between 10 and 20 students. In part, this depends on the funding. Between 2 and 4 teachers. Again, in part depends on the funding, but it also depends on the preferences of the students, for reasons that I'll explain. And depending on the number of students, also we'll have between 4 and 6 monitors. And typically, the monitors are former camp students, not always, but typically they are, and we prefer that they are, for the reasons that Beatriz and Kia mentioned, because they've been there, they know how the camp works, they know what kinds of difficulties students might have, and so on. So when it comes to the students, let me just emphasize that they need to be European Union students and nationals. This means that they must be citizens of one European Union country and be living and studying in one of these countries. The country need not be the same country of their nationality. You could have a Portuguese student studying in France, for example, but you must have a European Union citizenship and be studying and living in a European Union country. So the teachers are active researchers, so it's important that it's useful for you to interact with people actually doing research right now, so they are active in a particular field, and they, depending on the student preferences, we may have just 2 teachers, in which case all the students will have the same 2 courses, or we may have more than 2 teachers, and in that case, students can choose which courses they will have from 3 or 4 courses that we'll have, and so not everyone will have the same courses. So in terms of funding, I mentioned that for students studying in Portugal, the camp is free, so you'll have no expense at the camp. For other students, ESO will provide a bursary for 1 student, as they did last year. So there will be 1 student for which ESO will pay the camp expenses. Not the travel, so you still have to fly into Porto. So that is not covered by ESO, but the bursary covers the camp expenses. So ESO transfers that money directly to us, so you have nothing to worry about in that regard. We also have a protocol with the Fundació Catalunya La Pedrera, which is a Catalan foundation. They have a program called Jovens e Ciência, and if you are a student in that program, and if you apply to the camp and are accepted at the camp, if you are selected, then Jovens e Ciência will pay your expenses. And in that case, I think that they also cover your travel. So again, if that's the case, they'll probably book your flights and they'll transfer the costs of your participation directly to us. So if you're a Jovens e Ciência student, talk to your contact person at Jovens e Ciência if you want more details, but in principle they can cover the expenses of up to 2 Jovens e Ciência students. We're always trying to negotiate similar agreements with other funding sources in other countries. So there's no fixed quotas, there's no fixed places, so we cannot guarantee that we'll have a student from Jovem Ciência or for any other source, but we're happy to make arrangements whereby if a student applies and is accepted and is eligible for support from some of these sources, then they can those sources can cover it, and we can interact directly with that source of funding. And in that case, students will have less bureaucracy to deal with, and of course it will have less costs. If there is no direct source of funding like that, you may need to pay for your expenses, or your parents may need to pay, but we may also help you get your own funding by applying to other sources of funding. If you're offered a place, if it's necessary, you can write a formal letter saying you have been offered a place and the cost of your participation will be this, and in some cases that letter may be useful for you to get funding from local sources. So if that's the case, we're happy to write such letters and to maybe give you contacts of funding sources in your own country. Some of these we know, others we might not know them. You probably know them better than we do, but in any situation where we can help, we will of course help. Now, I mentioned the number of courses. I didn't say what courses you will have. This is in part because we don't know already, and in part that is because the students will help us select the courses. This is something that it's a process that we started last year, and we're going to maintain it and improve it slightly this year. So at the moment we have an international call for proposals. So any researcher active in the field of astronomy or physics, so any researcher with a doctorate, anyone who has a PhD and is working in this area, is welcome to propose, to offer, to teach a course at the AstroCamp. So teachers are not paid, of course. They'll have their food and lodging covered, but they don't receive a salary for teaching. They do it voluntarily. So any person can propose to teach a course at the AstroCamp. So we receive such proposals. We make a first selection. We check that the courses make sense, that the scientific content is accurate, and that pedagogically the course is reasonable. It contains things at a level that bright high school students can learn. So we make such a selection, and then when we are selecting the students, when we make this short list and we invite students for interviews, then we'll send those students the list of possible courses that we can offer. And one of the things that you will be asked during the interview is, if you are selected, which courses would you prefer to take? And so we check that. The answer will in no way affect your chances of being selected. We just want to know which courses students find more useful, more interesting. And then, depending on that, and using our own opinion of the content of the courses and of how useful they can be, we then decide which courses are actually taught, and then we make all the arrangements with the teachers. So, if all the students prefer the same two courses, then everyone will have the same two courses, and we just have two teachers. And if we just have to pay for the expenses of two teachers, we have more money to pay for the expenses of students. If the student preferences are more diverse, and more or less there's 3 or 4 courses that are equally liked by subgroups of students, then we'll have more teachers at the camp. Since we have to pay the expenses of the teachers, that may mean we have 1 or 2 fewer students. So that's also a decision we'll take. So depending on the quality of the students, do we prefer to use the money for an extra teacher, or do we prefer to have an extra student? So that's something we will decide, but we do want your feedback about what you'd like to learn at the camp. And also, using your feedback, we might change slightly the content of some courses. We might say, this course is very good, the students like it, but instead of having 2 lectures on this topic, let's just have 1 lecture on this topic and have the additional lecture be on a different topic, just because the students would like to learn more about such a topic. So we can also make those changes and agree those with the teachers. So this is a process that will develop throughout the selection process. And by the time you are at the camp, you should have 2 or more courses that have been designed more or less for you. So because we know the students Students are interviewed, so we know what students will have, we know what they know, we know what they don't know. We can more or less design courses that are optimized for you. Another thing we'll have this year, as we've had in all previous years, except the first, is an alumni weekend. So all students from previous editions of the camp can return to the camp for 2 days, so in the weekend, in the middle of the camp, so from Friday afternoon to Saturday afternoon, in the weekend, in the middle of the camp, so they can come to the camp again, you know, see each other, see the new students, and also help us in community service activities, go hiking, go stargazing, and help start other projects. So there's a new project that we may start this year. I cannot tell you what it is yet, but it's something we're trying to work on. Okay, so how does it work in practice? So the applications are done online on the AstroCamp website, and the applications period will be during the month of April. So from the 1st to the 30th of April, if you go to the website, there will be an application form appearing there. It's not there yet at the moment. It will appear on the 1st of April. So as I said, we can accept applications from students from the European Union who are currently in the last 3 years of pre-university education. If you participated before as a student, you cannot apply anymore. You can come as a former student, you can come as a monitor later, and so on, but you cannot participate twice as a student. So last 3 years of secondary education. So in Portugal, this is 10th to 12th grades. In other countries, names will be different, but it's always the last 3 years before you start university. So broadly speaking, you should have been born between years 2000, not 200 as it says on the slide, 2000 and 2002. Although this might change a little bit from country to country. Not everyone starts school at the same age, and this varies from country to country. 2000 to 2002 is a rough indication. There's one place reserved for a student from Porto, Dakota, which is the municipality that hosts us. So the local secondary school can nominate a student to participate every year. That's the only exception we make. All the other students go through this selection process, so they have to apply and be interviewed and so on. So the only criterion for selection is academic merit and potential. So there's no quotas for Portuguese or foreign students. There's no quotas for 10, 11th or 12th grade students, nothing like that. So merit is the only criterion. So the final stage of the process, as I said already, is an interview, and the interview would always be done in English. And this may be, if you're in continental Portugal, you can do this in person. Here in Porto on Saturday, May the 26th. In Lisbon at the Pavilion of Knowledge on Sunday, May the 27th. Or you always have the option of doing it via Skype. If you're abroad, you'll certainly do it via Skype. But if you are in Portugal and you live at a significant distance from Porto and Lisbon, or it's not convenient for you to come to Porto or Lisbon, you can just do it via Skype. So in your application, so the application is done online. There's some data that you fill in, you know, your name, your date of birth, your school, your address, a bunch of things like that. But there's some documents that you need to prepare. So you need a motivation letter, which you must write yourself in English, explaining who you are, why do you want to apply to the camp, and so on. So it's a motivation letter. Then you need a letter of recommendation from one of your current teachers. Ideally, your physics teacher or your maths teacher, but in some schools maybe the headmaster or the school director prefers to write that, or maybe some schools demand that this is how it's done. If that's the case, that's fine, but please explain in your motivation letter that this is what you're going to do. In principle, it should be a current teacher, so a teacher that knows you well. Then you also need your latest school certificate containing your grades. So in Portugal, this would be your second term grades. So it's a certificate that you get or that your parents get during Easter holidays. this is also the case in other countries. In a few countries you don't get a certificate at Easter, but maybe you get a certificate at Carnival, so more or less right now. So if your school year is organized into 2 semesters, maybe you have maybe you're receiving your school grades round about now, and then you don't get anything else until the end of the year. So it's basically the latest school certificate you have that contains your grades. So those 3 documents are necessary. If your application does not have them, your application will not be considered. Optionally, so you can also send additional documentation that you may think is helpful for us to evaluate your application. So if you have participated in other scientific activities before, like the ESO astronomy camp, like physics or astronomy Olympiads, or even other kinds of Olympiads, you can send certificates of those to show that you've done this. This is optional, you don't have to do it, but if you have such information and you think it's useful for us and it's indicative of how keen you are on science or astronomy or physics and so on, then you can certainly do it. Finally, and also importantly, if you are not yet 18 at the moment of application, then legally we can only look at your application if it includes an authorization from your parents or legal guardians. So your parents must sign certificate saying that they allow you to, that they are aware that you are applying and that they allow you to apply. So notice that this refers to the moment of your application. So for example, if your 18th birthday is on the 1st of May, at that time you're an adult and you don't need your parents' permission to apply or to participate. But in April, you're still 17, and therefore you still need your parents' authorization to apply. Right, so if your 18th birthday is in May and your application does not include your authorization, then again your application will be excluded. So this is important. What counts is how old you were at the moment you sent the application. Now, one important thing, and this sometimes confuses students, and we get a lot of questions about this. Your teacher's motivation letter is not included in the application itself. So in the application form, what you will do is include the contact, so the name and email of the teacher that will write your letter. So when you send the application, the teacher will receive an email saying this student has asked or has nominated you as the person writing the motivation letter, and that email will also contain some instructions for the teacher how the letter should be written and how it should be sent. Essentially, the teacher will also upload the letter, but it will upload the letter in a different place. So the important point is that we must receive the teacher's letter also by this deadline, by April 30th. So, of course, we are reasonable people, right? If you send the application on the 1st of April, then your teacher has a whole month to send the letter, and if it doesn't arrive by the deadline, your application is excluded. If you send your application 10 minutes before the deadline, I don't recommend you do that for many reasons, but if you send your application 10 minutes before the deadline, we're not going to give your teacher 9 minutes to write the letter, right? So in that case, we might wait an additional day, but not more than that. So please be aware that, and remind your teacher that there is this deadline, and that in principle it has to be fulfilled. Okay, so that's the main application procedure. Quickly, I'll just mention a few points of logistics, which are also the kinds of things that we get lots of questions about. So, if you are offered a place, you'll receive this offer by email in the beginning of June, and you must confirm that you accept this place by June 14. And by confirming, I don't mean just replying to an email saying, yes, I will come. This means signing a few more forms, so you'll have to sign some forms, your parents will have to sign some forms, so there's some paperwork to be done, and this paperwork needs to be completed by June 14. If you don't have your confirmation by that date, we'll have to assume that you are not able to participate, and in that case, we'll offer that place to someone else that is on the waiting list. If you have any physical limitation, any injury, any disability, any dietary needs, if you're a vegetarian, for example, if you're allergic to some things, then you must tell us at this time, because the planning of activities may rely on that information. For some activities, we must have this information, because it will affect whether or not we can do some activities and how we do them and plan them and so on. So in the case of food, for example, the food is provided by local people, by the SEA staff. And if there's going to be a vegetarian in the camp, they need to prepare specific meal plans for you. And that takes some time, so we need to tell them in advance. One important point is that everyone, all the camp participants, stay at SEA throughout the entire camp. So it's not possible for a student to arrive one day late or to leave one day early. We do this for logistic reasons, but also for pedagogical reasons. Everyone has to start the courses at the same time. So it's not possible at all to make exceptions for this. So everyone has to be at the camp for the whole time. And in practical terms, what this means is that everyone must arrive at the meeting point, which is the train and bus station in the town of Viana do Castelo, and you must be there by 4 p.m. on August the 5th. Then at that time, there's a bus, special bus, that takes all the participants from the town of Viana do Castelo to the camp itself. And then on the return day, everyone will be back to this meeting point before 12 noon. So if you live in continental Portugal, you may travel there by public transport, and if you do that, we'll cover that cost. So we'll buy the tickets with the appropriate tax number on the receipt, and then we'll refund you. You may prefer, or your parents may prefer, to drive you to the meeting point, and in that case, we cannot pay those expenses, but that's up to you. If you are not in continental Portugal, so if you live in the Portuguese islands, or if you are in a different country, then you'll need to fly into Porto Airport. For students in Azores or Madeira Islands, we will help you get money for those flights. In principle, you can get the region, or you can ask the regional governments to cover that expense. For foreign students, we cannot cover those flights, so either you or your funding sources need to do that. But in any case, if you land in Porto Airport, someone from the camp, a teacher or a monitor, will be there waiting for you, and then you'll do the trip from the airport to the meeting point, accompanied by someone from the camp. And that expense, so that train ticket or that bus ticket, will also be covered by us. In most cases, if you're not in continental Portugal, you can fly to Porto on Sunday morning. In a few cases, if you don't have direct flights, maybe you need to fly into Porto on Saturday, and if that's the case, we'll find your accommodation in Porto for that night. That's not a problem, we'll take care of it. So I mentioned the support for flights. So if foreign students cannot find a source of funding, either from us or from ESO or from your local sources, and if your parents need to cover those expenses of participation in the camp, then that expense should be around 400 euro. That was the number last year. In principle, it should be the same again this year. There's no reason why it should change. And so if you don't find any other source, we must receive that payment by bank transfer by the end of June. Okay, so just to summarize this, so the key dates. The applications are done online during the month of April. By the 10th of April, maybe a few days before, if you are shortlisted for an interview, you will receive an email inviting you to the interview. So if you don't receive anything by the 10th of May, unfortunately, you have to assume that you are not shortlisted for the interview. So if you are in continental Portugal, in your invitation email, a specific day and time will be mentioned. So if you are in the north of Portugal, your interview will be on Saturday here in Porto. So we'll suggest come to Porto at this time on Saturday. So you can reply saying yes, that's fine, I'll come on that time. Or if it's not convenient for you to come to Porto, you can say I live too far away, could I be interviewed by Skype? And the answer will always be yes. It's always possible to be interviewed by Skype. I would just comment that, and Kia mentioned this a little bit a few minutes ago, from the point of view of the student, an interview by Skype is always more stressful than an interview in person. From the point of view of us doing the selection, there's no difference, and you will not be treated differently either way. We make a lot of effort to make sure that there's no discrimination and that you're not put at a disadvantage by being interviewed by Skype. So from that point, there's no concern at all. But from your point of view, from your experience of the interview, being connected remotely by Skype is always more stressful. So if you can come to Porto or to Lisbon, I would suggest that you do that, but if it's inconvenient for you, then there's no problem at all. So in any case, if you receive this email, please reply quickly, and if the date or the time that we suggested is not convenient, please immediately suggest alternative times. So as you can imagine, we are interviewing lots of students during that weekend, so our schedule is very busy. And if you cannot make the time we propose for you, we may have some difficulty switching you with someone else. And that has to be done quickly, because once students accept a given time, then you cannot ask the students to change that time. So the schedule will be frozen very quickly. So it's important that either either the time we suggested is fine for you and you say it's fine, or if it's not fine, then you need to find an alternative quickly. Because if people don't live in Porto and they need to travel by train or by bus, or if their parents need to drive them, these people need to make plans. So please reply as quickly as possible. So as I said, the interviews in Porto will be on Saturday, May the 26th. In Lisbon, will be on Sunday, May the 27th. Or if they are to be done by Skype, they can be done anytime in either of those days, but they have to be done during these days. In order to make the selection process fair, we have to interview everyone as close together as is humanly possible. So this means doing it on Saturday or Sunday. I don't mind interviewing at 7 a.m. or 10 p.m. if that's the only time you can make, but it has to be done during the weekend, during this weekend. So please try to have at least some period of this weekend free for a possible interview if you're applying. Then, after the interviews, we select the students. By the 1st of June, you will receive another email offering you a place. If you don't receive an email by this date, this means you're on a short list, so we don't have a place for you immediately. But don't give up hope immediately, because there may be that some student who gets an offer cannot participate. This has happened 2 or 3 times in the past. So if some of the students that get offers decline, we may still offer places to other people that were in the waiting list. So if you don't receive anything by the 1st of June, your chances of participating are a bit lower, but they are not exactly zero. So essentially, we'll only contact you once we know what is the outcome of your application. Either because we offer you a place, or because all the places have been taken and we cannot offer you a place. So in that case, we'll tell you, unfortunately, we cannot offer you a place. So we'll contact you once we know the outcome of your application. So if you get offers of places, you should accept them by June 14. If there are any payments to be made, they should be done by the end of June. As I said, in the case of ISO, in the case of Jovens e Ciência, they will make the payments directly to us, so you don't need to worry about any of that. And the camp itself will be in August, from the 5th to the 19th, as I said. So all this information, including the camp regulations, is already at the AstroCamp website. You can find it there. The application form is not there yet. It will appear in the beginning of April. But sometime during March, we will put some template motivation letters, essentially a list of things that we suggest that you address, that you discuss when you write your motivation letter. And we also put a template letter for a teacher's recommendation letter. So if you're thinking of applying, talk to your teacher, ask him or her if he's willing to write a letter, and you can show the teacher that template give an indication of what kind of things the teacher is expected to write about. So to summarize, AstroCamp is your chance to learn about your favorite topics in physics and astronomy. It's your chance to analyze data from some of the world's top telescopes. It's your chance to learn a number of skills that will be useful in your future, whether you end up working in this area or not, like high-level scientific programming, like modern statistical analysis tools. So a bunch of general scientific and technical tools that will be useful for you and that you will have to learn anyway in a lot of areas of life. It's also a chance to talk to active scientists, both at the camp and elsewhere. We have these Skypes with students, with teachers and researchers and lecturers, and a few students occasionally. We talked to one student actually last year, a student from Princeton. And it's also a chance to meet students from other places that have similar interests. So this is what the camp is. Maybe I should also say what the camp is not. It's not a holiday camp. As you heard already, we'll give you lots of information, we'll teach you lots of things at a very fast pace. You'll learn a lot, so you have to be prepared to learn a lot. So you have to work hard. So this is an academic program. Our goals are mainly academic, but it's an academic program where we try to remove all the stresses that may help you, that may prevent you from learning. So it's a camp where you can be entirely focused on learning new things, on discussing your ideas with other people, and you don't have to worry about food or catching a bus or train to go to school and back home and so on. So we try to remove anything that can prevent you from achieving your full potential. It's not just for future astrophysicists. It's essentially a way to learn how science is done and also to learn a bunch of other tools that are not exclusive to science. We'll use astronomy and physics as examples just because these are the things we know most about. But we have had several students in the camp who, when they applied, were pretty sure that they did not want to study astronomy or physics. But they wanted to participate in the camp just because they like astronomy as a hobby or just because they simply wanted to learn new things even though they have decided this is not what they want to do in life. You don't have to want to be an astronomer or a physicist to come to the camp. If you like science and you want to learn new things, then you can always apply and come to the camp. It's also not necessarily for the students with the best grades. Grades are important, at least in the first step of the selection, where we don't know you, so we have to rely on your motivation letter and your teacher's letter, but also on your grades, so that so grades are to some extent part of the selection process. But students with the best grades don't necessarily make the best researchers or the best professionals in any area of life. So grades are a part of it, but they're not all of it. So that's why we have the interview. But this also tells you that you should not be intimidated because one of your classmates is applying and he or she has better grades than you. If you think you should apply and you'd like to be in the camp, then by all means apply. But do bear in mind that the camp is selective. You'll be competing for places with other people who presumably will prepare good applications. So you should also prepare a good application. So as I said, don't prepare your application in the last day. Even if you have to submit it in the last day, don't start preparing it on the last day. Think about what you're going to write on your motivation letter. Think about which teacher you want to write your motivation letter. It should ideally be a teacher that knows you well, that has known you for several years, ideally, but if that's not the case, then if you change school, for example, then that's not a problem. So think about your application, think about the interview, and try to prepare, because you'll be competing with other people that are preparing. So don't get beaten that way. So do your best to prepare and then apply. And the camp will challenge you every day. Right? Even if you're not there competing for grades, there will be exams as you've heard, but these are not most important things. You should focus on learning. But the camp will challenge you and will demand your effort, your energy throughout the 2 weeks. So finally, let me just remind you that even if you have understood everything we have said in the last hour or so, and you're entirely convinced that the camp is something you'd like to be part of and that you're going to apply, that's excellent, of course, but this does not excuse you from not doing your homework. So in particular, you should carefully read the camp regulations that you find on the website. So make sure you understand the regulations, make sure you know what you have to do and when the deadlines are. So all the information that you need at the moment is already there. We'll update the camp website frequently with additional information as it becomes available. So please make sure to check the website periodically, especially when you're preparing the application. The recording of this video will also be available on the website, so you can watch it again if something's not clear and you think it was discussed here. If you apply this year and you don't succeed, try again next year if you're still in high school. A few students were selected the second time they applied, so the fact that you don't succeed the first time doesn't mean that you won't succeed next time you apply. So if you're still interested in participating, then apply again. If you're in doubt, or for example, if you don't know if you're available on those dates, maybe you're thinking of going on holidays that time, or maybe your parents were thinking of going on holidays. So if you're not sure if you're available, my advice is apply anyway. And if you get offered a place and you discover you actually cannot participate, then that's unfortunate, but at least you have the possibility of participating. Whereas if you decide not to apply just because you think you might not be available, and then in the end you decide you would actually be available, then that would be a pity, right? So if you think you might be interested in participating, then apply first and worry about the decisions later on. And if you apply, good luck. And there are lots of candidates. You have strong competition, but if you're interested in applying, then you should apply, and we'll see what happens. Because if you don't apply, for sure you don't participate. So that's all we had to say. So if you have any questions, email them to us or write them on the chat window of the YouTube feed. I don't see any questions right now. I think no. So there's nothing on YouTube. There's also nothing on the email. So yeah, I think that's all from us. So you have the AstroCamp email again. So that email will be read regularly throughout the coming months. It will be read basically every day once the applications period starts. So if you have any questions, either now or during the applications period, when you are preparing the application, if something is not clear, then please do contact us and ask, and we'll reply very, very quickly. So that's all from us. I hope you found this useful, and I do encourage you to apply, and I hope to see many of you at the interviews and at the camp in August. So that's all from us. Bye-bye.